Welcome to the Dork Forest. Jackie and her pals will never bore us. Shameless confessions
about our obsession
will make us laugh and smile. So let's explore the Dork Forest and dork out for a while.
Hi, Jackie Kashian here. You're listening to The Dork Forest. You know the websites, dorkforest.com, thedorkforest.com if you like a determiner. JackieKashian.com has everything. Both of my podcasts, all of the stand-up stuff, the new album, links to YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, all the things. But so, I think, does dorkforest.com, where you can look at old videos of different shows. Anyway, if you want to support the show, tell people about the show, review it on iTunes, thumbs it up on Pandora or Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts. I appreciate that. You can donate. You can donate monthly. PayPal lets you do that. You can also do my Venmo if you like. It's at Jackie Kashian, absolutely everywhere. And my email address is jackie@jackiekashian.com, and that's what the PayPal is. The PayPal link is on jackiekashian.com and dorkforest.com. And go to any of them. Thanks for listening. There's merch. There's stand-up. There's tour guide. You know, you can find out where I'm touring. This is getting long, so let's get into the show. Hey, Jackie Kashian. Here we are in my garage. We're here for this second part of two. We're going to talk to these two guys have started the podcast. They're comics. They're geniuses. They're men about town. Are they? But with me today to talk about Formula One Part 2 is Geoff Tice. Geoff Tice, welcome to the program.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me. And thank you for letting us talk about such a silly niche thing.
You and Brent Gill have a podcast called Grid Penalty Podcast. I spent an hour talking with Brent Gill just 2 episodes ago, and I learned about the origins and about that there is some drama, that it is fraught with peril. It's been an exciting time. There's a docuseries that has inspired people. Geoff Tice, by the way, it's Geoff Tice, but his all of his handles are Geoffrey Tice, GeoffreyTice. You might know him from the art on my current album. And the Squish with Whomever You Wish t-shirt. This is Geoff Tice, artist, stand-up comic, guy who likes Formula One driving without wheels.
Thank you so much for that intro. I'm excited to be here only because I'm excited to talk about Formula One, but I could have brought a few other topics to talk about, such as merch and
posters and art.
Art posters for comedians, specifically comedy posters. I think it would be me, Barry Blankenship, and Dave Klock just aggressively talking in a circle about
how you want it to be clean. You want it to be clean, but pop. Anyway, but this I think is going to be so. Brent has told me that the Formula One, just to recap, is a sporting racing thing, but not stock car.
No,
it's open wheel, no fenders.
Yep, no fenders, and it's open. Well, there are regulations and there are restrictions, but like stock car, or unlike stock car, or IndyCar, those other championship races, things like NASCAR, all the cars are the same and they have the same regulations and the same engines, and it's all a level playing field. In theory, I'm sure everyone's fine-tuning here and there and finding their edge.
Pop's racer, he's gonna put a different engine in that car.
He's gonna figure it out. Yeah. And so with Formula One, it's the quote unquote pinnacle of motor racing, which is fun because you already talked to Brent, and Brent is like a legit car guy. I do not care about cars. I am not a car person at all. I drive.
You're a people person.
I'm a drama and a soap opera person. I like storytelling. I like art. I'm an artist, guys.
What do you do? He told me he has two cars.
Yeah, Brent's he's in a different planet. He's off in some weird world buying cars up. I drive a 2011 black Ford Fusion.
There you go.
Practical. I bought it. I used to live in California, and it's only the second car I've ever owned. I've had it forever. And so I'm just not a flashy car person. I'm a legroom person. I'm 6'4", so I just need
Yeah, you need space.
That's
You don't
all.
want to be. You don't want to be crunched into something that's adorable.
Yeah.
I lost my voice in the middle of that sentence.
You got excited about the Ford Fusion.
Right, the Ford Fusion. Is it? Does it run on fusion? Like, is it like the DeLorean where you put garbage in the top and
Yeah.
then it just
comes together?
Yeah.
It's real. Yeah, it is a nuclear version of the car, the Ford branch. So it's exciting that they're into that.
Is it a gas car or is it electric car? Is it hybrid?
It is a gas car. It's a gas car.
Just a regular normal car like my 2015 Corolla.
Oh, same car. We have the same car. Yeah,
yes.
It's perfect for Los Angeles traffic. It's comfortable. It's great.
Right. So what got you into Formula One if it wasn't the vehicles?
So it was again the storytelling.
Right.
I'm sure Brent mentioned the Netflix series, the Drive to Survive.
Okay.
Yeah. So that came out and I got hooked on that, which I think, I mean, clearly the sport has been exploding in the United States specifically because of Netflix, but also globally.
Okay.
And it's gotten so popular because of Netflix. And so what the Netflix series does is they just do a really good job of introducing the characters, the storylines, the people involved, and they are such cartoon characters because it's such a unique pressure cooker of an environment, and that's what makes it fun.
Right. Okay. So why is it? I mean, okay. So I have not seen the show. So they introduce you. They're like Drive to Survive, and then they cut to what? A guy going, "I can't survive unless I'm in a car." What is it?
I mean, honestly, I would watch that too. It is pretty similar to that. It really is that it's 20 drives. So Formula One as a series, there's 10 teams and there's 20 drivers. So it's hyper
2 guys per scene.
Yep, and they're teammates, and so there's drama between the teammates. The teammates are the number one competitors. You're always trying to beat your teammate first. They say teammate, but it is your number one rival. So
Interesting.
Yeah.
Because all the money is being sort of number one of 2 for Mercedes or Ferrari or whatever.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you're fighting for position inside of your team because in theory, you have the same car. They've given you the same car. So your performance should be objectively better than the person you're in the same car as.
Right, because then it is about driving. It isn't about the car because supposedly you have the same car.
Exactly. And so and then at the next level, you're also then fighting against the other 10 teams and driving against the other 10 teams.
The other 18 guys. Are there usually 20 people on the track for these?
There is. Yeah. So there will be 20 cars every race. And God forbid a crash or something that takes them out, a retirement.
I'm told retirement. That is only billionaire sons would call it retirement. And
there's a few of them floating around in the sport.
Right. Because that was what it was. That this is the most expensive racing.
Yes.
In the world.
Yes.
So do they have all 20 guys on Drive to like, or do they focus on like 6 or 10 of them?
It's a bit focused. They do introduce everyone. Some people, because of the liberties that the show has taken in the last couple of years, some of the drivers have said we are not involved in this anymore and won't give Netflix interviews. So that's where I took off from the I love the series show. And that got me into it. And then I am a sports guy. I like sports, and so I started watching every single week the actual races and comparing an actual race versus Drive to Survive. Drive to Survive is the Netflix version. Like you're gonna get the half hour, the hour, like high action packed. You actually watch a race, and you're like, it could be very boring for some people.
Right. How long is a race?
It'll be like an hour and a half.
Okay, so it's not completely interminable.
No, it's not like a NASCAR where it's like 500 laps. Sit in, let's get hammered. Put your little radio headset on and just sit in the sun. It's a different vibe.
Hope that there's a water fight at some point. Water balloons, which is what we always did in band when we went and saw the stock car racing. So, okay, so you watch the show, and then you're like, okay, well, this guy, and I have this from the previous show, Lewis Hamilton,
the guy, is the greatest.
He is racing. So I'm gonna try and like one of the characters is racing on a Sunday or whatever. I'm going to actually watch the race.
Yeah.
So that's what led you to actually sitting there and going, all right, I'll watch a race.
Yeah, I'll check it out. And it goes back to Netflix's marketing. They released the season and the series right before the actual Formula One season starts. And
Okay.
so you binge the episodes, and then it goes right into week one, which is in the Middle East. They race. That's a whole nother conversation, is just human rights violations across the board. And so
what?
Formula One is
wherever they race?
yeah,
Wait.
Formula One it's such a global sport. They race in every country. Every country is every race is in a different country. So they will hop around the world. They have 3 races now in the Middle East, one in Saudi Arabia, one in Bahrain, and one in I guess the Emirates in Abu Dhabi.
Okay.
So they're racing in these countries that have horrific track records of human rights violations.
Sure, on the crushed skulls of their citizenry. That's what the roads are made of.
What I mean, honestly, that and just gold, just billionaires' gold. And so that's another thing I find interesting about the sport is so high stakes and everything is expensive. It's such the part that I don't like that I kind of handle and I just compartmentalize probably is the elitist side of it, where to be a part of the sport, it's even hard to be a fan. Like going to races is expensive. Everything is expensive. And so it is this spectacle of extremely wealthy people who are all probably pretty bad people morally.
Right. Well, I mean, they're essentially, from what I have heard of the sport, you could buy your son in.
100%. 100%.
Yes. And, but you go and you're like, well, look at that guy's watch. Look at that guy's cufflinks. Look at that guy's haircut. That guy's suit or jacket
it has
do they show you the people? Yeah.
Totally. And you learn the personalities, you learn their backgrounds. I love where they come from. I love some of their stories. Some of them truly are like billionaire sons. And who are your favorite racers for like you kind of like, and the ones you hate, and the ones that are just on fire and you're like, I want to watch them burn. Yeah, there's I don't really have there's not a lot of comedians. There's not a lot of drivers there's definitely a lot of comedians I hate. There's not a lot of drivers that I hate. There's only 20 of them. And there's a couple there's one that he just left and I truly didn't like. He was a Russian driver. And because of the war, he was retired.
Excommunicated.
Yes, excommunicated. He had to go to confession, and so he was out of there. He genuinely sucked as a person. He was a bad guy.
What was his name?
His name was Nikita.
Probably still is
Nikita Mazepin. Yeah, his name's Nikita Mazepin. He was very controversial. He had a couple issues. Some videos he posted. Of like assaulting and like groping a woman drunk, and then he just posted it to his Instagram. That was before he was even
proud as he could be.
He thought he was, and this is where the billionaire son mentality comes in, where it's like, I'm sure he's just truly gotten away with everything his whole life.
And so whatever he thinks is funny and whatever he thinks is okay,
totally.
And he's not actually looking at people as people. He's looking at
100%.
Look at that mannequin. I'm gonna stick my fingers up its ass.
That's exactly.
And, you're
exactly.
like, nope.
Well,
nope.
and again going back to the drama of everything, it really has nothing to do with racing other than he was involved in a racing team, and then because of his actions and because of Russia, he is no longer involved in that team anymore. But his dad is a Russian oligarch and is at the table with Putin with a lot of these decisions. Like he is one of the, I think, 14 oligarchs that have private meetings. So he has these like intimate ties to Russia. It's not just I'm Russian. It's like, oh, you're like bad guy.
Right. It wasn't just, local boy does good and happens to be Russian.
Yes.
He is the son of Voldemort.
Yes.
And So yes.
Yes. Absolutely.
Okay.
And so, he is he's the worm tongue to he's out there.
Right, to Sauron.
Yeah.
And so was he replaced? Who was he replaced with? Do we know?
He was replaced with another
Russian.
A Danish, worse. His dad is now driving. He was replaced by a very likable Danish driver named Kevin Magnussen. And so that's exciting. And he's awesome. And he took a year off or was not a part of the team. Now he's back. COVID was a big issue as well. But that's another thing I love about it. Watching these teams shift it's all about positioning and making sure you're doing the best you can and trying to vie for the contracts and the money. And you only have this tiny little window of earning potential as a Formula One driver. And so,
because is it a quick career? Is it like you start when you're 4?
Yeah.
But are you done when you're 25?
No, it definitely can be a longer career, but it's very rare. There's only a few drivers that have this extended career. It is more rare to have a driver come in and, let's say, be around for 5 years, 6 years, and then he's out. Or, and there's kind of this rotating cast of characters on the fringes. I just talk about it like it's a play.
Right, completely. It feels like one.
Yeah, totally. And that's why I love it. But these guys will come in and they're kind of on the fringes. They're not these elite talents that need to be in the sport. And then there are probably 10 drivers that they're there for forever. And if they leave a different team, another team's picking them up. And that's another part that's exciting. There's only 20 spots. And you think about any other sport in the world, a basketball team, there's 15 players on an NBA roster, and there's however many, 32 basketball teams. Like, you have less.
There's at least a couple hundred guys.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And like the chances of even becoming a Formula One driver are so slim. And then you have to try to keep that seat.
Right. And they pull them up from the Indy, right? Or they pull them up from the.
Yeah, they pull them up from Formula 2. There's a Formula 2 series, and there's a Formula 3 and a Formula 4. And so.
What?
Very weird.
Are they just the A-ball, or are the rules different? Are they different?
It's similar. It's just the cars are faster is what it really is. Formula One cars are like just truly jet engines. Like they're airplanes doing the opposite. Like they just push towards the ground instead of lift you up. That's all they're doing, and on wheels. But Formula 2 is same kind of championship series. They race in a lot of the same tracks as the Formula 1 guys do. A lot of Formula 1 guys are friends with the Formula 2 guys because they all raced together in go-karts. And
when they were tiny, fabulously wealthy babies.
I mean, that's it, little billionaire gold-plated go-karts. That's what it is. I mean, it's so funny. One of my favorite drivers, his name's Lando Norris.
Lando
Calrissian. He's out here just flying in cars.
Yeah. His name is Lando. That's awesome.
It's incredible. And he's funny because he's an interesting person in Formula One because he's super young and he's extremely talented. He's had some early success, but he's also a Twitch streamer. And so
he plays video games.
He plays video games, and he's one of the first drivers to kind of capitalize on the younger audience and the younger crowd. And so he's huge on Twitch and plays video games, and he's friends with all like these esports guys and esports personalities. So there's this weird crossover between this elite race car driver, and then he just on his off weeks he's like, I'm streaming, and then you just go watch him like on Twitch. So
right. And what is he playing? Elgin Scrolls, or what is he?
I think he will play a lot of just like, I used to watch him play Fall Guys. Do you remember that game, Fall Guys, for a minute? It was a very silly, like kind of community based. It was fun. And then I would just watch him. He'd play like Call of Duty and stuff like that.
Okay, like first place.
Yeah. And then I think racing games too, which, I mean, you gotta, you
gotta love that.
It's also funny, like if you were terrible at them, if you're a professional actual driver and then garbage at racing games. So
yes,
he's a fun personality. But again, it's only based because he's actually good. So he's good, and then he gets this following because of that. So that's fun.
That is fun. So, so how old is Lando?
Lando, I think, is
early
20s, 23.
Oh my God, these guys are babies.
Oh, and they come in like one of the best drivers, the guy who won the world championship last year. Very controversial. I'm not sure if Brent got real fired up about it.
Oh, he did. He said that there was racism. That it was entirely that he was set up because they had to start out evenly, but the other guy got new tires. But it was the guy I mentioned, right?
The director guy. Yeah. The theater director, the race director. Yeah.
Right. Oh, and then they Catholic churched him too, right? They didn't. They fired him, but they just moved him to a different parish.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah, he's now in Idaho, and he's just at a place up north. And so, very much so, very funny that Brent mentioned the racism part. Brent and I very much believe like that was a huge factor in it. And Lewis. I'm sure Brent said this, but Lewis is the only driver of color on the grid out of the 20.
Oh, I did not know that he was the only one. He's
He is-
dreamy. He's
he
cut out
is-
of a he's cut out of a very pretty looking piece of cloth.
He's the
that young
hottest
man.
dude on the planet. He is.
Yeah, and he's 37, which is old for the sport.
Well, yeah,
right?
it's very old. It's hard on your body. It truly is. Driving is tough, especially when you're going that fast. They
So
can
they're
get
going
up
like
to
300 miles, right? Or what
they
is
get
it?
up to about 200 miles or like 3-something kilometers. They can get like
Okay.
an hour on the straights, but they'll
Yeah.
take corners. The G-force on corners can get up to like 5 or 6 Gs through
Yeah.
corners. So they're
Feels
very
like you're hard on your bones, like an astronaut hard on your bones, kind of
absolutely
thing, right?
yeah. They're very like fighter pilot-esque, and so. And their steering wheel is essentially a cockpit computer. Like it has all these knobs and there's a screen on it. And they're always flipping little things while they're trying to race. And so,
Right, and they're talking to somebody, right?
yep, they're
They're like,
either
oh, there's trouble. Hey, your
Watch it.
wife called. But they don't have
Yeah.
wives; they have girlfriends. And so-
they have lots of girlfriends. I think is probably the vibe. But to go back to the guy who won the championship with the controversy and how young he was when he started. His name's Max Verstappen. He's a Dutch driver. If you
Okay.
watch Drive to Survive, he is one of the key figures early on that they totally dub as just an asshole. Like he is but what I think is he's just probably Dutch is what it is. He is very good. He is extremely good. He's one of the greatest, but
Yeah.
they make him look like a real asshole, which they all are. They're all very like me
but
first,
varying
always.
degrees. Yeah.
Totally.
Me.
And
Yeah.
Exactly. And the more I've gotten into the sport, the more I've learned about it, the more I've paid attention. He's really not that bad of a guy. He is aggressive, especially on the track, and he has his moments, which they all do, but he's not really like as much of a shithead as Netflix
Let's
makes
say-
him look.
Or Nikita.
Nikita
he's-
is a true shithead. So,
Right. That's
yeah.
a true douchebag of a dude.
Absolutely.
And,
Absolutely.
So this guy is just super competitive
Yeah.
and super entitled and
Yes.
living in a bubble.
And living in a bubble. Exactly. And comes
at
from
11 years old. Yeah.
Exactly. And a millionaire just lives like that's the other part, the elitist part it's kind of it's fun to watch from afar, but it is that like, damn, all right, this is your life. A lot of those guys they live in Monaco.
Okay.
Because you think it's like, oh, because Monaco is this beautiful on the
Like
coast.
sophisticated James Bond.
Yeah. What it is a tax haven. They don't have to pay taxes.
Oh, good Lord.
So yeah, Lando just got, and they're all, so a lot of them are British. Most
Okay.
of them. They're all from like, there's 4 drivers from Britain. There's a couple, 2 French guys, 2 Canadians,
Okay.
2 Spanish, 1 Italian, or no, he's gone. But anyway, so they're all kind of European centric, minus
Okay.
2 random Canadians.
U.S. dudes.
No U.S. drivers at all.
And where did the Italian go? What happened to the Italian?
He was at Alfa Romeo, which is an Italian car maker and team.
Yep.
His name was Antonio Giovannazi. very.
No. That
was-
is an unfortunate handle.
Yeah. And
Okay.
again, talk about a really hot dude. He was like the Italian Jesus, big long hair, big tall guy. He looked great. He was awesome.
Yeah. Right.
So Giovanazzi he was racing for an Italian team, which is a huge advantage. If you can, because that's another part of the sport that is fascinating to me. It is, since it's all run on money. Money rules everything. Cash is king in Formula One. If you can be the nationality of the team that you are racing for, that is a huge advantage for endorsements, money, and financial backing. Because a lot of these drivers bring
like
in
if the
financial
Mercedes
backing.
guy was German,
Yes.
it would be like a double win.
It would be
of some
huge.
sort.
There's there is an Italian team, another Italian team called Alpha Tauri, and they are sponsored by Honda. And so Honda is a Japanese company, and so there is a very young Japanese driver named Yuki Tsunoda, and they picked him up because he did really well in Formula 2. It's a great driver. It's on merit, but the fact that relationship exists and he would be a Japanese driver on a team that's sponsored like a marquee sponsor that is Honda, huge for the market. So he brought in all this money. And that's all you need. You just need to bring money. If you have money, it's pay to play. So
it's pay to play, and it costs $1 gajillion to make a jet that goes. Yeah, this dude, this is a handsome young man.
That is, oh yeah, Giovannazi's
handsome-
doing great.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
but he, why was he let go?
So he literally, it wasn't because of his talent. It was just because of the financial backing. So the guy who took his place his name's Zhou Guanyu or Guanyu Zhou, depending on the pronunciation. But
Right.
he is the first Chinese driver to be in Formula One. And so what it really came down to was Giovannazi just couldn't compete with the financial backing that these Chinese companies will now bring because of the first Chinese Formula One driver. So if they can get their logo on the car, it's going to sell globally, and that's what people in China want. The companies want. They want to see their logo. So
Sure they do. And they know that everybody who watches this is either upper middle class or fabulously wealthy, up
Truly.
to 1% kind of thing.
Truly, yeah.
So okay, so Max Verstappen, back to him and the TV show. So he's set up as a bad guy because they have to do it. It's a reality show, right?
Yes. Yep.
So
Totally.
there's 20 guys. Who has been sold as the good guy
I would
on
say
the show? Because it's kind of the same characters to some extent, right? For 4
totally.
seasons.
Yep.
Okay.
Totally. I think the best. I'm trying to think back on who they really show in a good light. The person who comes off the most popular is a guy named Daniel Ricciardo. And so that's another guy. If you look him up, great looking dude. He is. He's just a hot Australian guy.
As I was telling Brent, nothing makes you better looking than all of the money. Because you can get all kinds of things done. You're probably super healthy. Your hair's cut right. You're wearing the clothes that fit you. Your teeth are good. All things are happening for you.
It's so true. It's so true. And it's that plus youth. So they have money
and youth. Right. So Daniel Ricciardo's Australian.
So he's a real good looking hot Australian dude, extremely charismatic, very silly. He's a silly guy for such a extremely uptight and kind of, we're down to business. It's all about performance. He's definitely the levity in the show. He jokes around a lot and has a good time. He's an incredible driver. He races. His teammate now is Lando, the guy I like. So big fan of both of them. But Ricardo is also, he's just this clownish kind of goofy. He's like the comedian of they call it the paddock, like the area that all the cars are and where all the racing is. It's around the paddock. So everyone knows him as the fun guy. He also is his lifestyle outside of F1 is fascinating to me because he lives in Los Angeles. He's the only driver that actually lives in the United States.
Where it's possible to tax him.
Well, it's like,
at least
what are
a
you
little
doing,
bit.
bro? Yeah,
What are
go
you
to
doing,
Monaco.
buddy?
Which actually I think he might, which very Formula One. I think he might actually have residence in Monaco, which I'm almost positive he does. And
it looks like he's 33 years old. This guy's he's ancient.
It's so funny, the old professional sports like meme where it's like, guy 36, a miracle that he's out here. I can't believe he's alive. Yeah.
And he is of Italian ancestry because he is slightly darker than the Whitey Magoos that surround him.
The Russian white knights.
Yeah.
It's not good. It's not good at all. So yes, he is Italian and he is a little bit darker, at least closer to like Lewis. But those two, honestly, and there's like a couple Spaniards, but Lewis is truly the one who has, going back to the racism conversation, Lewis from day one in karting talks about he had a target on his back, especially coming from England. He was always, him and his dad were always the only two people of color at the whole track for their whole lives. And he has used that obviously as fuel, and he has a massive chip on his shoulder when it comes to that. He's just proven everyone wrong every step of the way, and it's been awesome to see. Yeah. And obviously, the racists, they hate it. They hate it so much.
Right.
And so it's fun to watch because he truly is the best.
So Lando is Belgian. He's British, but he's Belgian.
Born in Belgium. Because Lando's another one, son of a billionaire, but he gets the pass. No one knows his dad as well as the other two guys.
Okay.
So and Lando had a lot of success early on. So people were just like, oh, he's a really good driver, and then they didn't pay attention to that. His family is extremely wealthy.
Right. He was born with like golden spoons coming out of every orifice.
100%. And so the other guys that were thrown into the mix that bought their seat, that
they get more guff.
they do. Their dads are like the Lawrence Stroll is the big billionaire. His son Lance Stroll is a driver. He bought the team. Like he just he just went in and said, "Give me the team."
I'll buy the team, then you'll run my kit.
That's it. I'll take one. And so that's another part of the drama that I love is just these lunatics, absolute lunatics coming in and throwing money around like that. So
right. So the drama comes on the show. Where does the drama come from? Does it come from those guys facing each other on the track? Does it come from them trying to outspend each other? Does it come from them busting each other's chops about their parents and
and what they're doing in the French Riviera later that year?
I guess, or is it women? Is there scandal? Is there latest scandal on the Netflix show?
There's not really. It's all. I mean, there is scandal. It's all about the racing. Like it truly is. It comes down. These guys, they want to do is win. And they'll just do anything and they'll do anything to win. And so the issues and like the drama and all the fun storylines.
Murder? Like what do you mean anything? Like examples, please.
I think it's just like that's all they think about. Their whole life is centered around getting the next position higher. And that a lot of them aren't dirty. There is controversy around driving tactics, and that's in every sport. People race dirty or play dirty or whatever. That definitely happens.
How can you race dirty when the race is, I mean, granted, it's an hour and a half, so it's not drag racing.
Yeah.
Those guys have 3 or 4 seconds to do something dirty.
Yeah.
But it's not like they're, pouring sugar into their gas tanks.
No. Yeah. It's a lot of like tactics where, if you get too close or you push them off the track or, you accidentally clip them or you intentionally touch them. The problem is if, a lot of contact, those cars they're very delicate.
Right. They would just fly up into the air and kill everybody.
Absolutely. And so a lot of, at the end of last season, there was an incredibly dangerous and scary crash where a car went up on another car and then shot over to the side and essentially went head first into the barrier. And the car split in half, which is rare. That's not supposed to happen. And then because it split in half, it exposed the fuel tank. And this all happened in a matter of a split second. Yeah. And then everything ignited. It was a huge explosion. And so the driver was a French guy. His name's Romain Grosjean. And so he's a great guy, but he made it. He lived. You didn't think he was. I watched it live. It was like I watch all the races since they're all in Europe and around the world. I have to get up on Sunday morning at like 6 a.m., 7 a.m.
Right.
And so if I have shows the night before, I'm just a disaster trying to watch these races. But I had my coffee and my blanket on my couch and I stood up and I was like, holy shit. I was like, I was stunned. I was like, I just watched a guy die because it's not unheard of for guys to die in Formula One. Famously, some of the great, like Ayrton Senna is one of the greatest of all time. He died back in 1994. Totally changed the sport because of his death. He died at a racetrack that they just raced at last week in Italy called Imola, and he hit the barrier and died because of the old Formula One cars were just big steel traps, and so if you hit it going fast enough, you were toast.
And what was his name?
Ayrton Senna, Senna. Senna. He's regarded as one of the greatest of all time, if not the most iconic. There's essentially 3 or 4 drivers that people see as the greatest. That would be Senna, and then Michael Schumacher is a name that you might have heard. He's from like 90s, early 2000s. He was like the Ferrari driver, and he's regarded as the greatest of all time. And then the next greatest of all time, of best of a generation, would be Lewis Hamilton. So Lewis has better numbers and stats, but a lot of the fans grew up watching Michael Schumacher, and so he'll forever be the greatest of all time. He's also white, and so that's an unspoken thing that I think a lot of fans are like, no, he's not as good. It's like, well, it's just because you probably don't like minorities, is what you're saying to us.
Yeah.
So,
And
it's a part of it.
Ayrton Senna da Silva, Brazilian and Portuguese,
Yes.
died at the age of 34.
Yes.
And I wonder about like who his family. I want to find out. He was with the Lotus, McLaren,
Yep.
Williams, and Tolman.
Oh yeah, and some of those teams are still around.
Okay. Oh, do the teams kind of come and go a little bit as their billions wax and wane?
That's exactly it. It's all money.
Okay.
It's all money. And so Williams was until 2 years ago, or last year, a mom and pop shop. It was a family owned team by a guy named Frank Williams, which is just a guy. But
okay.
Incredible that they were around so long. They just sold to a big, conglomerate to get more money. But that was a family business. But Lotus is no longer involved. McLaren is involved. The McLaren cars, which they still make supercars and road cars that you would see around like Los Angeles. But
right.
Lando and Daniel Ricciardo, they drive for McLaren.
Okay.
That's my my hoodie is a McLaren hoodie.
Oh, that you bought to support
I have my cute little
your team
McLaren hoodie. Yeah.
Yep.
My little jersey. And my little
well, you gotta wear the colors. Why not?
my little support system. So that's fun. And then the big dogs are Mercedes, which I'm sure Brent talked about. That's who Lewis Hamilton drives for and has won 7 world championships.
And would have won 8.
Would have won 8.
Right.
But Michael Massey excommunicated.
Right. So was 7 in a row? Did he win 7 in a row or
not
no?
in a row? I think his first one was with McLaren, and so he started with McLaren, and that's when he was really young, came out of the gate and just crushed it, and then moved to Mercedes. It was very controversial at the time. Again, with the storylines, people were like, "Mercedes is terrible. Like, why would you do that?" And he wanted to build with the team, and then, in one of the greatest moves in sporting history, he moved over and then just obliterated everyone for a decade. For the next 7-8 years, 9 years, he just
won everything.
He won everything, and so it turned out to be the greatest move. It was a lot of other factors. There's another awesome figure who is the principal. He's kind of like the head coach, GM, overarching our Lord and Savior of Mercedes. His name's Toto Wolff.
Okay.
And again, another big, good-looking dude. He's Austrian.
Okay.
And he's kind of he's very charismatic, but he's very like Darth Vader-ish, because he has so much power in Formula One. He has power over, because Mercedes is such a player. Mercedes is also a car manufacturer, so they have their own factory. They make their own engines. Some other teams will buy Mercedes engines. Some of the 20 teams are customers of Mercedes. So it's a big power play to be able to supply engines to lesser teams. And be like, here you go.
It's peasants and side cash. Brent and I were talking about how it's a great side hustle. You're like, we're just going to make $200 or $300 million.
Yeah, just real quick.
They don't know how to build it, so it's not gonna affect our win.
Yeah.
But they can have it if they want.
Yeah,
But if they would have given it to Pops Racer, Speed Racer would have had the best car in the world.
The greatest of all time.
Because Pops could have reverse engineered it. And so this guy, Toto Wolff.
Yep.
Toto. What a name.
Toto, I know.
What a name, Toto. It's is an Austrian billionaire motorsport executive, investor, and former racing driver.
Yeah.
He holds 33% in the Mercedes team and is the team principal and CEO of the team. And he is 6'5".
Yeah, he's a big guy.
Are these guys tall usually?
No, the drivers, he is, but the drivers are not. The drivers are very.
They have to squeeze into these low cars. This is one of your own issues.
Yes.
So
this is my life. They are very. They're not as small as jockeys, but it's the same mentality where their weight matters. The weight of the car with them in it is a regulation. They have to make certain weight, and
so they weigh in like a jockey.
Absolutely.
before
They have their threshold of weight that they need to be at. But then they also, if you watch a race, at the end of a race, they get out of their cars, they're all sweaty, they have their helmets or whatever, and the first thing they do is they have to get on a scale, and they weigh themselves on the way out because, one, they're losing so much water weight, and that's part of like the data that they need to know how much water or weight they're losing.
Oh, right. So that
during
they can
a
sort
race.
of plan for the next.
Yeah, and so it's all part of the calculations in the data.
I thought you were going to say they get out of the car and someone handed them a sandwich.
I mean,
and,
just a
that's
cigarette.
What really,
and they're like, there you go, bro.
It's like something, just some sort of, just a food because they haven't eaten.
Well, it's so funny because when there's so much pageantry of like the podium and all that stuff, but when they do get out of the car, if you get first, second, or third, you're obviously a part of the podium and you get a trophy. And they walk over and the cameras are on them and they go to this little stand that has a 1, 2, or 3, and they have their little hats and they put on their $300,000 watch for the sponsors and stuff.
Right.
But they have like a little snack and some water. But clearly everyone else who goes to the back has their water. But I just like to think that only if you get the top 3, you're only allowed water.
Right. And at that point, you get gummy bears. Everyone else is just back there with saltines.
Yeah, just Nature Valley crumbs all over. So it is fun. And the pageantry of that is exciting. It is a bit of a tabloidy TMZ frenzy after. All the cameras and the interviews, and depending on what's going on or what happened in the race, it could get a little. Most of the time, they're like the sports guys or PR machines. They're like, oh, just one race at a time, on to the next, whatever.
Thanks, God.
Exactly. Yeah. Shout out. Yeah. Exactly. Our Lord and Savior. So every once in a while, you get like the PR machines, but sometimes they just got done getting in a huge crash, or they're upset or whatever, and you see some of their personality come out. That's really fun. So. That's what I love, because they get, I love the drama of it and stirring it up.
Do you have favorite, give me we don't have a lot of time left. We're doing fine. But just some sort of favorite races or favorite moments?
Yeah, I think one of my favorite moments is probably the one that Brent got super fired up about, was the last race, the last lap of the last race of last season. The Last of Us. It was incredible. It was one of those moments where you knew it just was a nuclear bomb going off, and the effects of it were going to be so huge. It literally just carried tidal waves through the off season.
Was it the Lewis guy?
It was the Lewis. Yeah, it was where Lewis
and the Van Stat or whatever.
Yeah, Verstappen. Yeah. That controversy where it was the last race. There was one lap left. There was a crash, and the rules were not followed, and because the rules were not followed, the advantage went to Verstappen. He ended up winning, and because he won, he ended up passing him on the last lap of the last race of the season to win the world championship. It literally was whoever was first. That's another thing that's so rare in Formula One. The season's so long, and normally or typically the championship is decided 4 or 5 races before the end of the season. So
because someone is so clearly ahead point-wise or something?
Exactly. The math does. It's never.
What is the math? Do you know the math?
Yeah, it's a point system, and so I don't know exactly the math, but I know that if you get first, you're allotted a chunk of time, a chunk of points, and it's just that. So only the top 10, 1 through 10 positions, get points. So if you're 11th, you get 0 points. Right. And so I don't know exactly how many first get, but it goes all the way down. If you're in 10th, you get 1 point. Okay. But some of those teams, another thing I love, because Formula One can get so unfair with how much money certain teams like Mercedes and Red Bull and some of the bigger Ferrari, they have so much funding. Their cars are always going to be at the top. Right. And there's a midfield, and the midfield, it's they call it the best of the rest. And so it's teams 4 through about 11, and then maybe a little less, 12, and then 13 through 20 is just kind of back markers. They're just like the trash teams.
Right.
And so it's like 3 races or 3 things happening at once. You can watch the guys at the front, which is exciting. You can watch the guys in the middle, because a lot of the guys in the middle will really never compete with the guys at the top. And then the guys at the bottom are always trying to jockey their way up into the middle. And so you'll see guys get 10th place and celebrate it like they're first.
Yeah.
And then you'll
Okay.
see it's amazing. That's what I love, is because their expectations are so practical and objective. They say
Yeah.
our best case scenario is we are going to get 12th. And that's what their goal is. And so you're like, okay, if they get higher than 12th, it's going to be a party for that team. And so that's kind of fun.
That sounds super fun.
Yeah.
And I mean, all 20 racers obviously have opportunities for supporting, they're clearly better than everybody in Formula 2, 3, and 4, right?
Yeah.
They're better than the Indy drivers.
Yeah.
They get to drive rocket ships that go on the ground. And so they must benefit from that, sort of sponsorship wise and influencer wise. And
that also goes back to, that's a great point. Like that goes back to how good looking they are. It's a huge part of it. It's not a mandatory thing, but it does tend to happen where a lot of these guys are incredibly talented at driving, obviously, but a huge part of it is being the face of all these brands that are putting money on your car. Be the face of Red Bull, but then also be the face of Red Bull has all these other entities that pump money into them. So like McLaren has WebEx and Dell, all these different, like Bose is part of Mercedes, where they part of their contract is they have to go do all these advertisements for all these other brands.
Okay.
And so they're on photo shoots, they're doing media, they're doing interviews. So they have to be these brand ambassadors for who knows what brand. And they have to be so good in front of the camera, so good. They're so well media trained. But
right. They have to be personable and
smiley and
yeah.
And some of them are 23. Like imagine being 23 and be like, I guess I have to handle this. So
yeah, right. I mean, it's that whole, in the NFL they give them a class.
Yes.
They give them some sort of camp of what to do with their money and how to not throw it away and try not to spend it all because you only have 10 years and buy land. Jesus.
Yeah. It's hard to tell a guy from the Kansas City Chiefs to move to Monaco though.
Right. And all of these guys, or not all of them, but I would say an extraordinary number of them. Every time I Google one of them, it's like, oh, his dad's a billionaire.
Every time.
Almost every, But like this Ayrton Senna da Silva dude, his grandparents immigrated to Brazil from Italy. Guess where they came from?
Oh no!
Yeah, so
the
they were
Vatican, probably.
No, I think Nazis. I think they were probably with them and their Nazi gold went to Brazil.
Yep.
And some of them went to Argentina.
Oh yeah,
some
Argentina
of them went to Brazil.
Heavy. Yep, totally.
Yeah. So Italian immigrants, and so that was his mother's family.
Yep.
And then his father's family were old school Brazilian landowners. So Spanish conquistador, craziness.
Yeah.
So these are not these are not helpers.
You don't get exactly. That's well put. Not helpers. You don't get that much money by
ever giving it away.
Serving.
Yeah. It's that is brutal. That is hilarious. So they're 23 and they're wandering the earth doing photo shoots when it isn't race time.
Yep.
But they have to be good at it, right? To get where they are to some extent, right? I mean,
absolutely.
And the training, I mean, it's sort of, my sister says this about her children. She's like, they aren't geniuses. They just have the advantage of having a small school and tutors.
Yes.
So they are better educated than other children. And so in this case, these children got to do go-karts when they were 5.
Absolutely.
And then they got to do bigger and bigger cars. And so they're either good at it or they're great at it. And if they aren't great at it, they go into a different job.
Yep.
But
they go back. Yeah. They take over the 20 banks that their dad probably owns.
Right. And we say the top 1%, but 1% of 8 billion people is actually a lot of dudes.
Yeah.
And I was asking Brent if there were any women, and he was like, there are no women.
No women.
But there is, he said there was one woman who raced, I think it was
maybe in the 60s?
Well, no, he was talking about the one woman who was a stock car racer.
Oh, Danica Patrick?
Yeah, Danica Patrick. And then there was And so it could happen, I mean, these men have daughters.
They do. There's also a really cool series called the W Series, and it is open wheel racing. It's similar to a Formula 2 or a Formula 3, but it's only women drivers.
Oh, that's weird. So
yeah.
Okay.
There's no reason Brent would ever know this exists.
Right, because it's a weird racing reality show.
Yeah.
That only, by the way, I'm talking with Geoff Tice, you guys. It's at Jeffrey Tice with a G on all the things. He and Brent Gill.
Way.
And Grid Penalty Podcast is their Formula One podcast, where it won't just be 2 hours, you guys. It'll be hours upon hours upon hours of the minutia and every race
details.
Unpacked.
Details. And so
the W show,
Thank
is
you
that
so
on
much.
Netflix?
So that is an actual racing series. That's not a like a show. So it's professional drivers who are women driving as professional race car drivers. So they are.
So it's just a racing competition called the W show.
Called the W Series. Yeah.
The W Series, because why wouldn't it have a name that reflects the freak show that women behind the wheel is?
Yes.
So
a little bit of I don't know the right word for it, but drama, silliness.
Sure.
This year, Caitlyn Jenner will have a team in the W Series, and so she is sponsoring a W Series team, and so there is a race team now called Jenner Racing. And at first, everyone was like, "What is going on in this world?" But what it comes down to is influence, money, and branding. And so Caitlyn Jenner wanted to be involved in it, and then everyone was kind of like, seemed like a joke at first, but then she signed the previous
her team,
champion. Her name's Jamie Chadwick, who's an incredible driver. Jamie Chadwick, everyone was thinking would be, if there was a chance to be a Formula One driver that was a woman, it would be Jamie. She's awesome and an incredibly talented driver, but she stayed in the W Series to race for Caitlyn Jenner's team. And so there's been this conversation of like, does this tarnish the name of the W Series because it's this massive celebrity coming in?
And because Caitlyn Jenner is a tool.
She sucks.
She's an asshole, and
and
she
also
wasn't great.
Killed someone with a car.
Right. It's Oh wow, I did not know that.
She famously ran over that person and then was like, "Nah, it's whatever. I'm rich."
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Made uncomfortable. And this is where it all falls apart, where you're like, you're supposed to support women, Jackie. You're just like, what if they're dicks? What if they're assholes? I don't want to.
Yeah.
What if I've been having to police women and they're just sort of like, how people of color have had to police each other for 1,000 years.
Yeah.
Women have had to do it as well, where you're just like, you're ruining it for everyone.
Hey, guys,
and I've
stop.
only had to do it for white people for the last 10 years, because previously I didn't notice. I'm so sorry. I was in a fishbowl circling my own castle.
Sorry.
So
I've been 6'4" looking above it my whole life, unfortunately. And
I am so sorry. I should have looked around.
It's a problem.
It is a problem.
It's not great.
I am addressing it. It's
But the bright side, the positive side of that is that there is a series dedicated to women to drive, and they get the experience and they get the exposure on this global scale.
Right. And so it could eventually go to Formula One. Jamie Chadwick could be.
The hope is, who knows if that will happen, or if potentially a driver that is a woman will come through and maybe Jamie will be the, she walks so the next one can run to get into Formula One.
Right.
It's obviously it's so hyper exclusive that just to even be in there is hard. But then all the roadblocks that is gender inequality and things, in especially a sport that even the employees are and the teams are majority male. Even the employee, there's not a ton of women. There's all these.
There's adjacent women, as women have been adjacent their entire lives.
Exactly.
But it's interesting because the W Series has only been around since 2019.
Oh, I didn't know that. I didn't know it was that new. I just knew I'd only followed it probably since 2020. Yeah, a couple years.
Yeah. So that, it makes perfect sense. And I wonder, okay, so there's 6 races And there's one in Mexico City, one in Austin, Texas,
Nice.
one in Suzuka, one in Budapest. That sounds cobblestoney.
Yes.
Le Castellet in France,
Nice.
Silverstone in the UK, Barcelona in Spain, and Miami.
Amazing.
So are any of those places where Formula One races, to your knowledge?
Those are all places Formula One will race. And so they race on the same track. They will. And they'll also race in the same weekend a lot of times. So it'll be an event where...
it'll be a little bit of a crossover where the W Series will also be the same weekend as the Formula One Series.
Yep. So a lot of times they'll race. I'm not sure exactly what day the W Series will race, but Formula 2 will be there sometimes, and it rotates. It's a rotating cast of kind of undercard races. So Brent and I went to Austin last year.
Okay.
We're going to be in Miami this next weekend.
We're going May 6th through the 8th is when the W Series is.
Perfect.
Which is
next week. So
I think that is next weekend. Yeah.
Right? Okay. Yeah.
And then Austin is in October at the second to last weekend before Halloween.
Perfect. In Circuit of the Americas. We went there, and man, goddamn, so Texas. It was a mix of Formula One fans that are this like kind of global, like upper crust, whatever. And then just so many just like redneck Texans like, hell yeah, motors, let's go. And so
let's go, and not a mask in sight.
Oh boy, it was.
Oh no. They didn't get the COVID. They didn't get it.
It didn't exist down there.
Yeah, I was just there. I was just in Austin. And
were you doing shows?
I was Moon Tower, and and I had been there a year ago at the Creek, and they were all like, well, the mask mandate is lifted. I was like, no, I was here in May of 2020.
Yeah.
There were no masks.
Did you fly with no mask? Like, not you personally, but was the mandate lifted by the time you were on your flights?
Which is being challenged right now. They're just like, it's not that big of a deal. I've had one cold, and it was right in between. It was right before Omicron when we all wandered around without masks for 2 weeks.
Yes.
And I got a terrible cold that wasn't COVID, and nobody cared.
Nobody cared.
They were like, it's just a cold. Go to work. And I'm like, no, when I have a terrible cold, I also don't want to go to work. It doesn't have to be COVID.
Oh man, I just went to Scottsdale for a thing, wasn't even comedy related, and flying to Phoenix, that's a different planet as well. And so man,
I was
couple weird looks. I'm like, it's just we've been wearing these. What are we doing?
It was like mid 2020 or early 2020. I went to Vegas, and they had a mask mandate in the Tropicana, which is where I was performing, and so everybody was wearing masks. And I would get on stage and I'd be like, so you guys kind of sick of the masks? And they'd be like, yeah. And I said, but you really want to sit in front of a slot machine for 8 hours, so you're willing to do it? And they're like, yeah.
Sure.
I guess, yeah. And you're like, yeah, I love the power of your convictions.
Yeah.
Anyway,
yeah.
Wearing MAGA hats and just out of their goddamn minds. So
that's insane.
Bunch of idiots. Yes. So here we are. Real close. We're real close to the end of it. So what does everyone race in every one of the 26 races?
Yes. Theoretically, yes. That's the goal, is that they're there if
unless they have a cold or something.
Oh yeah. Well, another fun story is COVID. Obviously, not the funnest story, but COVID happened. The fun story because of COVID. A couple drivers have gotten COVID in the last 2 years. And there's one driver who, for some reason, is the substitute. And so he used to race. His name's Nico Hulkenberg. Hulkenberg. They call him the Hulk. And he is awesome.
Okay.
And he is...
What makes him awesome?
I think he's Belgian or German. I think German.
Hulkenberg. It makes me think German.
I think German. And you looks pretty German. So I'm going to go with German. But he's a very lovable character. Very nice. Just a great face of Formula One, but he lost his seat to a different driver a couple years ago. But he's one of those guys. He's still young and still has the ability to just hop in a car and fill in. So he's become this de facto substitute for a couple teams that he used to race for. When someone got COVID, they would literally call him 2 days before the race or 3 days before the race and say, hey, can you fly to whatever country they're in? He hops on a plane, flies there. They have suits and helmets for him already, and then he just races. And
he wears a pink thing.
Yep.
He is 34 or 35 years old.
Oh, he is. That's older than I thought. I thought
born
he was
in
younger.
87, and he is German.
He's
and
a year
you are correct.
older than me.
Okay.
That's wild. He is German, yeah. It's funny now to say Nico Hulkenberg and be like, I don't know what that is. Of course it's German.
The Berg will sell it. And so, wow. All right. Well, Geoff Tice, this has been, what has it been
for you? Truly, what has it been? Are there some topics like this that are just like, you're like, whatever, dude?
No, I'm always interested. I never want to do, there's so many topics that I'm like, when we hit an hour, I'm like, no, we're done.
Yeah.
And
Shut it down.
And it's because it is fascinating, but there is, like with other people's dorkdoms, like I could talk about any number of things forever.
Yeah, totally.
And there's a glazed look that can come over your face. And that's why the show is an hour long.
Yeah.
Because
perfect.
I think about an hour of someone else's, what they love is great. And then we hear these stories, and who knew what billionaires and their sons were doing?
Where they're laundering their money. That's exactly what they're doing.
Exactly. That's exactly what they're doing.
That's
and
exactly what it is.
They're hiding it in Monaco. They're putting it into vehicles that turn over and fall apart. And they're like, I lost money this year. And you're like, because I bought a rocket instead of, I don't know, fixing the housing problem in Los Angeles.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and, world hunger.
Yeah, I could have stopped it all in a heartbeat. But I was too busy. I wanted to, my son likes to drive.
Hey, he's a good kid.
He's a good kid. I love him dearly. And I'm sure that they're nice enough, but I hope that they all start libraries.
Baseline. Yeah, that's exactly. I hope they do some good.
Right. I did. It's I hope that they buy public. They may not have to. They might not have to buy public opinion because they're busy showing off watches.
That's it.
But this has been a delight. Geoffrey Tice, by the way, is GeoffreyTice. He has done much art for me and other comics, and it is always a delight. He's a great stand-up comic, and it is and it has a podcast with Brent Gill called Grid Penalty Podcast. Thank you very much for doing the show, Geoff Tice.
You are the greatest. Thank you so much, Jackie. I really appreciate you.
You're welcome. And Rangers, you know the rules out there. Take care of each other.
My hat, my hat, my hat. They're dancing around my hat. My hat, my hat, my hat. Well, what do you think of that? If it looks like a Mexican hat dance and it sounds like a Mexican hat dance, it's most likely a Mexican hat dance. So take off your hat and let's dance.
Yay! Oh my God. Why don't we just call that as the end of the show?